Okay, in today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a string stamp to basically print or stamp a structure that then will paint in with colors that I mix. So I like this cotton cord. It's like a kitchen twine because it will absorb liquid paint really well. So I have a little piece of cardboard and I cut a notch on two sides, and that notch is where I secure my string, and then I can wrap it any number of ways. Probably not simple is good, not too complex. Okay, so something like that. Okay, then I'm using my liquid acrylic paint. And if you don't have liquid acrylic paint, you could thin some paint down. And it doesn't have to be black, but I chose black so it doesn't compete with my colors. And I'm putting it on this paper towel. It's going to absorb some of it, and I'm going to use it as a stamp pad for, I'm going to do a second piece. So using a broad flat brush, get some paint on there. And I like to turn my stamp as I go to vary the pattern. Okay, so I've got that. I'm going to put that aside along with my stamp. When this dries, this is kind of fun to paint over, almost like a little miniature painting. So don't throw that away. Okay, now I'm going to do one that's a little bit looser. So I've had the 12 composition. Somebody muted, and I can hear your phone. Could you please mute yourself? Okay, now I'm back. And so you can get all these found objects. It doesn't have to be circular, but I saved these, and I'm going to do it's called the curvilinear composition, circular. So I'm using these, whatever, caps, whatever these things are, to stamp some shapes, okay? And then I will paint, I'll paint them in. Okay, the other thing I'm going to show you, so that's curvilinear. Now, some of you already know this, it's really, really fun to paint with string. So I put my string in the paint, and put my brush on top of my string and pull my string through. It's going to absorb the paint. And I'm not going to put a lot here, but put this down, and I can, okay, there's not enough on that one. Let me do it again. But you can curve the string. You can get crisp lines that are curved. So here we go again. Okay. And I'll just do one last one. If I pull my string tight, usually I can get a straight line. There we go. Okay. All right. So here's what this looks like. Okay, I'm going to put these aside. And now I'm going to get into paint mixing. Here's my palette, paper, and I'm going to mix this cobalt violet with a titanium white. I'm going to use my angled palette knife. And I just got a strip of this Bristol paper, and I'm going to put all my colors on here, my gradation on there. So in terms of color, like reds, this is, pretty intense pigment. A little bit's going to go a long way, but I'm going to put out, it's not quite a tablespoon. And then I'm going to put out about the same amount, maybe more, of the titanium white. And then I'm going to take some of that, what did I say that was? Cobalt violet. Okay, there's one end. And you probably want a rag or a paper towel for this to wipe off your palette knife in between. Okay, so then white is at the other end. I'm going to start by mixing a tiny amount of this cobalt violet into my white. And I kind of scoop and fold. So this is, you're going to see what colors you can get by tinting it. And you're also going to get a lot of practice mixing. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of that right there. And then I'm going to take a small amount of that and put it down here. I'm reserving it for later because I'm going to use that in my painting. The stamp grid that I did. Okay, a little bit more of that. So you're also, it's like cooking, you're also figuring out amounts. So if you were doing a really big painting, you probably would want this color chart, and then you would have to maybe pre-mix large amounts. If you ran out, then you'd have your chart to refer to, right? If you lived during the Renaissance, then you'd have someone in the guild doing the job for you. Okay, nice. I like this color. All right, reserve a little bit more down here. Take some more from there. I'm being a little bit more liberal because I don't have that much space to get across to the other side. So I'm bringing it up quicker. Okay, reserve a little bit more down here. The great thing is I will take a photograph of this color chart plus a sample, and you could just print that out, and then you would have it as a reference. See, I'm running out of white. I'm going to have to add more, but that's okay. So at the beginning, you'll have more white, and as you move across, you'll have more of the color on the other end. Okay, I'll do one final one. Go just a slight bit darker. Okay. All right. So there's my gradation right there. I'll send you a photograph of that later on. Now, I'm going to take, actually, this is still a little wet. I'm going to get another one that's dry, and I'm going to use these paints to then fill in that composition. Give me just a minute. Okay, so here is one that I did yesterday. It's dry. And now I'm going to use all these yummy colors and fill in. So this kind of ties into last week. It's still, we have a structure, and it's still playful. Okay. And I'm doing my thing where I kind of work all over the page. You can add water. You can go, here I'm going a little bit thicker. And what's nice about this, you have the colors that you just mixed, but you see how they all interact with one another. So it's another nice reference. And I'm not being fussy about going right up to the black line. So there's a lot of variables. So here's thick and opaque, which I tend to really like. I'm going to try and put some in that are thin, like a wash. So there's the color, and then there's the thickness of application. So let's see if I can get more of a wash going here. Add more water. So that's more transparent. I can see some of the black showing through. And then, of course, if this dried, I could layer even more on. Okay, so there's that. Any questions? Because then I'm going to move on. You can do Sgraffito. I'm going to move on to another color palette. Okay, number 2. So I did a tint. Now I'm going to shade. Traditionally, you shade with black. I'm going to shade with a really dark Prussian blue and a Naples yellow. I'm curious. I wonder about that. I want to see what I'm going to get. So I'm going to remove this paint, but I'm going to save it because I'll come back and I don't want to waste that paint. I've got a lot of paint there that I can do some more paintings with on paper bags or canvas or whatever I want. Okay. Okay, so same thing again. Prussian blue at one end, Naples yellow at the other. And the gradation, this one, it's going to end up being, it's both shading and tinting depending on which end you're on, if that makes sense. Okay, so here's the Prussian blue, Naples yellow. Same thing, I'm going to add the darker color to the lighter and bring it up slowly. I could work it the other way around, but I find it easier to do it this way. Okay, and I should get some kind of a unusual, I'm thinking green. We'll see. I've never mixed this before.
I predict brown.
You predict brown. Okay, let's see what we get. Oh, I forgot to reserve some paint. Okay. That happens. All right. Got to remember to save it for the painting. Okay, here we go.
Or what are the names of your 2 colors again, please?
This is Naples yellow.
Thank you.
And a Prussian blue. Okay.
Perfect. Yep.
And that's like an unusual, very rich green there that I like. Okay, reserving some of that, remembering to do that, and then putting my color up there. So mixing paint, the palette paper is great because it's kind of waxy and smooth. or a piece of plexiglass or a piece of window glass, whatever works for you, but it should be, I think, smooth. That way the mixing is easier, right? Saving some paint. And when I send this out, I'll put the names of the colors in the email. Love it. So the interesting thing to compare, and maybe I'll do this while everybody's working, is what would it look? It would look differently if I used a pure white, right? It's going to be cooler. It's going to be a cooler tinting, okay? The Naples yellow, or if you use Titan buff, it's going to be warmer. So those are the things from mixing you'll discover. Okay, so there we go. I'll take a photo and send that to you. And now I'm going to paint in this piece. Okay. I'm using my nylon angled brush, which gives a really sharp edge. Almost like carving in. So again, I get to see what all the colors look like together. That feels a little dark to me, so I'm just going to blot it. And it's interesting, my thought process as I'm going along is I love all these colors together, but I can already feel it. Somewhere at the end, I'd probably want to add a pop of red somewhere. Maybe just one spot. or orange. Or come back to that other palette and throw some of that in. It's kind of eggplanty. At this point, I'm so in the flow, I'm being really bad. I'm not even washing my brush.